you take a step out of like, we as the readers have been in his head, right? So we know what he's thinking. If you take a step away from that and you think about like
this guy's crazy.
Hecla or any of them looking at him, it's like, this man is insane. And it just gets worse. Like, he'd be ripping people's arms off.
And putting it in his inventory. You know?
He'd be picking up everything that's not bolted down. Yeah. And like, he is insane because he just blows stuff up.
Hi, I'm Kay.
And I'm the grand champion, breed winner, national winner, Princess Donut, the Queen Anne Chunk, and also Kate. Yeah. And we're the crawlers next door.
Oh, crawlers next door. See, that's even better. Because aren't we all just in this dungeon, surviving life, distracted by the televisions?
Yeah, they were wrong. Life is not a highway. It is a dungeon. And we're not going to ride it all night long. We're going to descend into the depths of it.
Yeah. It will not break us or you, and we will destroy it all. We will break it, as Carl once said.
Break this as Yeah, we are the Ghouls Next Door, a media literacy show from a horror lens where we explore the real life, historical, psychological struggles and influences behind our cinematic fears. And we're in our alien abduction invasion series. Yeah, so we're talking about Dungeon Crawler Carl, specifically books 1 through 3. We can't do all that. There's a lot of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, and we just got to book 6. So.
Yeah, sorry. But if you like it, let us know. We can do it again. But it is about an alien invasion, and it's also about humanity and us persevering in the face of ultimate destruction and so many horrors and heartbreaks. And it's definitely a book series that has, exploded, which is Carl's favorite thing, all over the place. But I know there's also people who it's not for them, and I get it. It totally is fine if it's not for you. Anyone who says you have to wait until like book 3 or more for it to get good, then it's not for you. Like, if you're not hooked immediately, it's fine.
I was hooked immediately. I didn't even know it was a thing that you had to wait till book 3 to start to find it interesting. That's so interesting to me. And I've also, like, everyone we've recommended it to so far, I haven't heard any negative or anyone be like, nah, it's not yet. But
yeah, I've
yet to meet a hater is all I'm saying. I'm sure they exist.
Yeah.
But
in the book spheres, some people just aren't going to like it. And there's like I think in the first book, especially because it's so Carl focused, that like, the femme characters haven't really evolved, and it's setting up so much of the dystopian nature of the world that it's hard to realize like sometimes that's on purpose. Right?
Yeah.
And the other characters really start to shine later in the books. So I can see it from that point. Like, if Carl just isn't your guy and you don't like,
and it takes too long to get to the everyone else. Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like Matt Dinniman was pretty quick at establishing like good people and bad people. And also like the manipulation of the authorities and how they're controlling what's going on.
Yeah, how even the bad were harmed by the system.
The system. And it just gets crazier and crazier as the books go on because they're getting desperate, they're getting sad, they're losing people, reality. There's a lot that's going on, and I think it definitely gets better. But I think if you're not in it from the jump, then forget about it.
It's harder. Yeah, I get it.
You can just listen to this. We'll tell you what's cool about it.
We'll tell you what it's about. Why don't you do it, Gabe? Get in there.
Yeah. Let me tell you what it's about. So as you said, we're talking about Dungeon Crawler Carl, but books 1 through 3. It started in 2020, which is like a fun thing. I think a lot of things post-pandemic have evolved into louder pieces of media and literature.
Yeah.
But here is the description from the first book, and I will talk about a little bit about what happens in each book, but not really spoiling too much because I think it's important for people to read. But it says, join Coast Guard vet Carl and his ex-girlfriend's cat, Princess Donut, as they try to survive the end of the world, or just get to the next level. in a video game-like trap-filled fantasy dungeon. A dungeon that's actually the set of a reality television show with countless viewers across the galaxy. Exploding goblins, magical potions, deadly drug-dealing llamas. This ain't your ordinary game show. Welcome, Crawler. Welcome to the dungeon. Survival is optional, but keeping the viewers entertained is not. And it's written by Matt Dinneman. So, if that didn't get in. If you don't like we play D&D, so I knew you were going to like it. I don't even remember how I found it, but it found me.
Yeah,
so.
I just we were playing D&D and you were like, read this book. And I was like, okay. And usually if Gabe tells me to read a book, I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And I was immediately hooked. And I think what really I liked about the D&D aspect of it is I always thought he was going to die. Every 5 minutes he's doing something. I'm like, how? Like, it's rare for me in my neurodivergent brain to not be able to predict what might happen. And it consistently is like, I never would have thought that this is how we would have solved the problem. So it keeps you on your toes, and he survives in the craziest of ways that I'm like, I have no idea how we got here. How did you do that? And I think that's the whole point, because we underestimate our capabilities as people, you know?
Yeah. And I think it's like, it also adds to that suspense. Like, we know, because we see there's more books, right? That at least Carl is living. But how he's coming out of it and who is coming with him changes. And I think that's what's really, like, there's really key moments where it settles into that reality of, like, this is life or death. And, like, death is permanent. This is not like a video game. It's not a video game because we do not get reanimated. We're done.
Yeah. At least not the same version of us.
Yeah. And I think the antics and the, like, kind of quirky and insane choices that David makes reminded me a lot of John Dies at the End, which is like an absurd horror comedy as well. And so much, like, that's what I really loved about John Dies at the End, was just like, I didn't know what was going on ever. And I just think there was a real creativity and absurdity with, like,
it's nice
body
to be surprised
and reality.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, this really, like, triggered that. And that's why I kind of, like, reached out to everyone I know who would like that kind of thing. And got them hooked and joined my cult of Carl.
I got coworkers at work reading it now. I'm spreading the good word.
If I can, I'm like, do you have time to talk about our Lord and Savior, Princess Donna? But let me tell you about it. So, Dungeon Crawler Carl is a triumphant and heartbreaking tale of human resilience. Against the backdrop of the end of the world, Carl and his fellow crawlers fight for their lives against a system hell-bent on minimizing them to tools of entertainment. Turns out aliens are real, and they've got intergalactic reality shows of Hunger Games proportions. And when the alien corporation Borant comes to collect on their property, the Earth, the world is flattened. Carl and anyone else not indoors during this moment of jaw-dropping instant annihilation, like, when I read that, I was like immediately like, okay, I wanted to, like, wake up my husband and be like, you have to read this right now. Like, I can't believe I'm alone experiencing this.
Yeah.
Wake up. Wake up and read the first few chapters of this. Because it's like, and it's so, like, it's so insane, the level of, like, devastation.
Yeah, immediately.
How many, and it's the first thing. Like, we're introduced into the pure chaos of, like, everyone's pretty much dead. And you're just like, what? And then you're also thinking, like, well, I'd be dead. I'm not outside.
Yeah, no, I would be inside. My cats don't go outside. We're stuck. Oh, well, like, what do you mean? Yeah.
It's such a crazy way to start. But anyone who is outside, so if you were not crushed in that first wave, you're given the choice. So you can live above ground and try to exist in the world as it is now, which is essentially squashed. No resources, the trees go down, like, everything is gone. I don't know how they living out there. Or you can venture down into the 18-level world dungeon to participate in an AI-controlled murder game televised across the galaxy to infinity and beyond.
Choices. Such great choices, you know?
Definitely choices.
choices. Yeah.
Definitely, you know? Yeah. And we're not going to go over all the DC Dungeon Crawler Caro books, like I said, because we don't have the time and we haven't gotten through all of them. We'll be discussing the first three. But, like I said, if you like what we have to say and you're interested in learning more, let us know and we'll come back around and we'll do the next three and the next three and the next three as it goes.
Heck yeah. We'll see. I want to because I like them.
So Carl and his ex-girlfriend's Persian cat, Donut, choose to test their luck in the dungeon. What meets them is an at times comical but oftentimes depressing violent game. After a pet treat turns Donut sentient and into a player character, she and Carl fight for their lives and ultimately the lives of all humans. Right? The idea is like you get to the end and you get to decide what happens to the Earth, flattened or not. The first book introduces us to this new world, the quirky system AI, and the funny and brutal game mechanics. Borrowing from TTRPGs, tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons, the Borant dungeons feature a variety of deadly mobs, which are like killer monsters. Some are the typical monsters that you would find in those games, like goblins. Others are much more heartbreaking, are twisted and monsterized humans that remind Carl and the readers of the reality of the situation, because the world has ended. As humanity's numbers dwindle, Carl's resolve intensifies. The first book takes us through the first two levels of the dungeon and is a fun romp with sprinkles of genuineness. Carl offers brief, subtle hints to his own trauma, the troubles with his parents, his failing relationship with Bea, and his lackluster life. We learn that in like sprinkles. Like genuinely, especially the first book, it's like, you know, he has a little bit of a memory and you're like, wait. And he's like, but that's not important. That doesn't even bother me. And you're like, I think that does bother you. Wait, yeah. Can we go back to that? You said something about your mom. What's going on with your dad? Why are you trying?
Yeah. Yeah. No, until you're safe. You gotta keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like moments where sometimes he's like, why do I feel sad all of a sudden? And I'd be like, yeah, that's nothing. And then he moves on and you're like, okay. And that's kind of just the nature of like being in the middle of a traumatic like environment where you can't stop and unpack your trauma and what happened and how we got here. Right. So he's just like going through it. He's not asking any questions.
What is a
He's trying to survive.
Fun.
And it also just begins to lay out the reality behind the galactic systems of oppression. Corporate buyouts, military coups, and revolts haunt the dungeon. Carl and Donut learn that not only are they fighting for their lives, the whole thing is broadcast daily, and their lives depend on their popularity. They must also fight for views. Same. Girl, same. I was like, I'll be trying that, let me tell you. Yeah. Book 2, Carl's Doomsday Scenario, introduces us to the thematic floor 3. So floors 3, 6, and 9 all follow an overarching story, vastly different from the classic dungeon crawl Carl and Donut experience far. On this floor, they get their classes and a manager, Mordecai, who gives them an edge because he knows stuff, at least for a while, and he gets to complain at them and becomes a beloved part of our team. During this floor, Carl and Donut slowly start to become stronger and solidify themselves as top competitors.
The second they met Segnet, I was like, no, there's no way they get out of here. What do you mean? And then they do, and you're like, what?
They fight the circus, they get tangled into a soap opera drama, and they nearly wipe out hundreds of their fellow survivors in an intense.
Yeah, you enter the dungeon without your pants, you keep going.
Is one of, like, from the jump, I was like, how are they going to get in book 3, Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook? It's where I believe everybody really starts to dig his heels in and commit himself to not simply surviving, but instead tearing down the system. The Iron Tangle is a messy and complicated train system that dominates the floor. Every time. But don't worry about understanding. Like, we're naked. Cinnamon himself tells you to ignore the rules. Like at the beginning, the forward, he's like, listen, it's nonsense. Don't try to write stuff down. Sometimes you have to check it out. And as soon as he was like that, I was like, you got it, buddy. I wasn't going to do that anyway. He was like, don't worry about it. And I didn't. Excellent. And that's why I think Iron Tangle, it gets a bad rap. People don't like the Iron Tangle because it is very confusing. But I was like, I'm here for the vibes. And the vibes are like crazy. And so, and I also, like I said, think that this is when Carl really starts to get activated in his like anarchy, obviously, because he has the anarchist cookbook, but also in like that switch from I'm trying to survive and you're not going to get to me to I'm going to take you down. You're going down, dude. So
this is
it's
deeper
like
than just me.
Yeah, where he's like, it's starting to become clear there's other people at play. It's not just Carl anymore. And after receiving the anarchist cookbook, not a cookbook at all, but rather a living document with entries from previous crawlers who are now deceased. It's them sharing tips and tricks and also their stories. And so we get to learn about other crawls that have happened. And it's really heartbreaking because you know everybody in there dead. And Carl, and I'll say this about it too, is like you see Carl's like his ability to care in those moments because these are beings that aren't humans.
Yeah.
They're just other beings that are also victims of this system.
Yeah.
They don't look anything like him. Like some of them, he's like, I don't even know what that thing is. It's like some kind of air. Like he's like, some of these things, like, this is the most abstract concept of what a being is. And they, you know, they're drinking meat more, you know, like we don't know what's going on. But he's still like, that is a being that lived.
It's alive,
that died. And so did everyone they ever loved. And their entire history died. And it pisses him off. Like other heroes that you might just be like, dang, or focus on other things. No, he's livid, you know?
Yeah.
Carl figures out ways to manipulate the twisted system, finding help from the past, but more importantly, Carl gets very angry. And it's in this third installment that Carl truly becomes unhinged. I think this is where it becomes very clear how he's been portrayed for the past few floors and how other crawlers see him. And they've definitely shown him like his anger. And while it has been entertaining and volatile so far, has been broadcast every night and has spread a very specific narrative about our beloved hothead. The other crawlers are wary of him and his trigger finger, only to find him to be a desperate hero once they get to know him. And we learn more about his past and donuts in that moment. But there's like, if you take a step out of like, we as the readers have been in his head, right? So we know what he's thinking. If you take a step away from that and you think about like
this guy's crazy.
Hecla or any of them looking at him, is like, this man is insane. And it just gets worse. Like he'd be ripping people's arms off.
And putting it in his inventory. You know?
He'd be picking up everything that's not bolted down. And like he is insane because he just blows stuff up. Donut being like, there's a lot of kids in there, you know?
It's a lot.
It's insane. So I can only imagine, like, you meet up
with
this
guy. You're
just
seeing that,
This guy's scary. But he's not. He's a good guy. He does blow stuff up. Donut, too, becomes a more firmer shape of being, forced to grow up rapidly. The intensity and brutality of the dungeon begins to take a toll on her delicate heart. It is in this book that we first lose someone that we've grown to care about. We've definitely lost people throughout the way and like all of humanity that got squashed. But this is one of the ones where it's like we grew to love them. They're one of the good guys. And it is an abrupt and heartbreaking end. It is the first, this text from Crawler is deceased. And that was one of the moments of like, oh yeah. Like, it's so real. When you get that like, this was from a Crawler who's now deceased. And then they erase it and you're like, wait, full stop. What?
Yeah.
And it reminds Carl and the readers that the stakes are this high. Other crawlers start to take shape in this world. Carl and Donut's team expands and their connections grow, leaving them more vulnerable to torment and pain because now they have people to lose. But this doesn't stop them from making those connections anyway, right? The horrors persist violently and live on TV, but so too does humanity's resilience. Carl and his friends, even some of his new enemies, will not go gently into that good night. One thing you can guarantee about Carl, there's going to be an explosion. And I think one of the big things about Dungeon Crawler Carl that I see is that the revolution will be televised. I'm a strong believer of that in reality. I think in our modern society, social media in that connection, as depressing and manipulated as it can be, it also could be used as a tool for harm, right? That's why we have the red pill. That's why we have MAGA. That's why we have a lot of these harmful narratives. But it's also how we stayed connected during times of unrest, right? Like during Black Lives Matter, during COVID, some of the, like the 50-51, all of those things are people coming together, staying connected online. And finding resources, supporting each other, and being able to connect across, like miles and miles and miles, right? And it can be when it exists outside of mass media, which controls us and controls the narratives that we see. When we go outside of that, it can be revolutionary. It could be a tool to heal and to organize. I say that as a community organizer, as someone who works in public TV.
Media.
I am a journalist. So I'm going to advocate. I think there's always going to be a specific story that the main media is going to tell. And as a note, the system tried to silence me while we were recording this.
New achievement.
New achievement. They turned on my computer in the midst of me complaining and on my pedestal about being against mainstream media. So, Riverside, what's up? Are you a part of this?
It's almost like this, as you said, the system AI. It's happening.
Right, the system AI.
It's gaining sentience. It's hacking other companies.
As I said,
that's real.
The revolution will be televised. When I first started reading Dungeon Crawler Carl, I thought of Suzanne Collins and the Hunger Games, because Collins got the idea for her Brilliant series while watching TV. She was surfing through the channels and she saw absurd reality TV, and then she would change the channel. And then she'd see the horrors of the invasion of Iraq. And then back to entertainment, and over. And that is, I think, the start of doom scrolling.
Yeah. The infinite channels right? on cable.
As the numbers of crawlers dwindle drastically, viewership rises. The bloodier, more heartbreaking the death, the more eyes on the program. It pays to be unhinged, violent, and selfish in the dungeon. Still, Carl and his fellow crawlers, his crawler friends, cling desperately to their humanity, and that resilience and passion keep them alive. The reality TV out of it all is an important component of the Crawlerverse. While a handsome, strong man traipsing around a dungeon in his boxers and shoeless with his sassy princess cat is entertaining to the intergalactic viewers, it's also fun for the readers, right? As an avid viewer of reality TV myself, I understand the pull of the sociological experiments. I love to tune in my little social experiments, Love Island or Married at First. I love to do that. Reality TV plays on the human desires to win, to belong, and feel connected, and even more damning, to feel special. And while the crawlers didn't enter the dungeon with these desires, it quickly becomes apparent that they need that popularity to survive. The aesthetics of their choices become just as important as their class or weapons, and the viewer count shadows their every decision. More viewers means more sponsors, which means more support. They get resources and tools as the series goes on. And it, again, made me think of Hunger Games.
Because you get the sponsor boxes,
The Hunger Games thing, I kept seeing posts, and I also thought of this, for Love Island. So many people were like, I want to send a care package to some of these characters, just send little things and here's some snacks.
Yeah, because it is exploitation.
Yeah, we just want to take care of people.
It's fun. Yeah,
it is vital that the galaxy invests in you.
Katya is a great example because she's tough and strong, but the audience doesn't find her interesting.
Right, you gotta get that mohawk. Yeah. They're like, we don't care about her. One of the first reality TV shows, surprisingly still going strong, is Survivor. And while the stakes for DCC and Hunger Games are much more intense than an elimination at a torch ceremony, I've never watched Survivor, I don't know what they do, the sensationalism is the same.
Sounds right.
They do a little torch. They write it on paper things. Reality TV, the Borant Corporation, and the Capitol all thrive on abusing people, needling their insecurities and pitfalls for ratings. That's how you get money, baby. Carl is quick to understand the players of the game. It's not him versus the other humans. It's not even him versus the mobs and NPCs. It's him, his fellow players, the NPCs, mentors, past participants, against the Borant Corporation and all the other corporations, the stakeholders, the oppressive regimes, and even the viewers. because they're the ones who hold the power. And after centuries of desensitization, it's easy to see how viewers distance the lives on screen to characters in the show. We do it all the time with reality TV now. Viewers are quick to forget that the people on screen are just as insecure, fragile, and complicated as the rest of us. It's not new by any means. Like, humans have always been voyeurs. Think of the fights at the Colosseum. We've been doing that, right? We love to watch. But while our civilization has been watching people fight for their lives and identity for a few centuries, the galaxy has been doing it for so much longer. So it is a hard battle to fight evil corporations, but it's even more difficult to turn the hearts of the public. The audience is the largest entity in this game, and if Carl is going to win, he's going to need to win them over. The revolution needs to be televised. And despite Mordecai's warning, haunting him throughout the crawl that you can't save them all, Carl refuses to give it up, always going out of his way to save as many as he can. Some reviewers are quick to write off Carl and the world as being too cavalier with human life, of desensitizing us with intense violence, but that's entirely the point. To see Carl's pain and outrage grow with every death, and for him to learn that sometimes violence must be met with more violence. Sometimes you need to speak the language of the oppressors so that they understand you better. That's the only thing you're hearing. It's the only way you're communicating to me. So, and we leave Carl in the third book with his mantra, "You will not break me." But in book 4, that evolves into, "You will not break me. I will break you all." Which brings me to my second part of this, which is every soul a character. One of the more interesting aspects of the series is watching as Carl's ideologies evolve. Not just through his interactions with fellow crawlers like the folks in the Metal Up Party, but also through his interactions with the NPCs and mobs too. In book 1, Carl fights the Hoarder and the Juicer, and both of these bosses are human spectacles turned monstrosities. The Hoarder is a nightmarish and sad woman ripped from the TV show Hoarders. She's a beast and she speaks Spanish, a language Carl cannot speak, but her sadness and desperation is a universal language. I think it's also really important that he doesn't speak Spanish. It does not get translated. And so readers, if you don't speak Spanish, you don't know what she's saying. But I knew what she was saying. And I was like, this is I paused when I was reading it, because she's literally just being like, everything hurts. I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to be a bad person. Please just let me go to Jesus. Like, she's just like pleading, like, I'm sorry. Yeah. And like, honestly, I'm glad he didn't know.
Yeah, because he wouldn't have been able to end it. Yeah.
Right. And that's just like, I think that's so important that Matt Dinniman put that in there. You know, people have like a feeling about that specific mob, but I think it was the first introduction of like what the Borant Corporation was intent on doing. Right. It is one of the first moments where Carl is shaken by the reality of this apocalypse. Like, the other times he's just like, it's too removed from reality. It's too like goofy. Like, he's like fighting goblins and he's running around without feet, and Princess Donut's talking to him all of a sudden. Like, it's a lot of like silliness, and then you get to that, and it's still like there's some silliness in it, but it's also so fucking sad. And he has to be like, that's a person. And they made her look like that. They made her into this monster, and that's all that the world is seeing. Like, Galaxy World is seeing is this version of her, right? He has to contend with the truth that this boss monster was once a person and has now been reshaped into something to be mocked and abused. The AI and Borant Corporation are intent on manipulating and twisting the truth of our world, already spinning the narrative that we're a primitive, problematic species that deserves this end. It's important that they make us seem minimal and pathetic and worth annihilating so that people don't feel guilty about watching us die. And history is written by the victors. We talk about this all the time. And so we can only imagine the distorted truth spread about the many planets that have fallen to this game. Which is why later, actually in book 3, when we get the Anarchist Cookbook, we see that. Because those people aren't here anymore. Later in book 3, Carl and Donut are forced onto a show called Planet Beautiful, which began as something well-intentioned. It was an attempt to preserve the history and aspects of the worlds being undone by the crawls. But Carl is angered by the poor research resulting in childish YouTube nonsense about Chad class males and roasties. It's a lesser horror for sure, like in the grand scheme of things going on, but it's not neglectable, because the reality is that this misinformation could be all that's left of Earth. and it's depressing. Right. And as we discussed in our Pluribus episode, it is important that what we do and who we are matters. Like our history, just us existing and that being there is important. Right? Yeah. Like even if it's nothing, even if it's mundane. But having like weird, not real information is really upsetting because he's like, what if we don't win and we're done?
Yeah, this is what people think the world is. And then you're having Earth people say this as if they're an authority, right? Like you're giving them sort of some sort of choice, and they don't have one. Yeah,
right. Yeah, they don't have a choice, and so then it has the illusion of being real and of being factual, and it's not. It's as Carl and his companions continue through the dungeon, the AI and overseers do their best to bring him down. They test his humanity and his capacity for caring. In book 2, he falls victim to Signet's storyline, and while participating in it does save his life, he also sticks around because he begins to care for the NPCs who don't know that their lives are a lie. This is the first time he's like, they don't know that. Like Mordecai explains how they exist. And this becomes heavier in book 3 during the Iron Tangle, where Carl begins to wake up various NPCs to that reality, to the truth that they never had a wife waiting for them at home and that their purpose was always to die. Growler Gary is specifically an NPC designed to break Carl. Gary was a bartender in the Iron Tangle, whose tan turns out to be the key to powering these railway repair carts. In order to survive the level, Carl is forced to remove the arms, the hands, of the reanimating friend over and over again. And Carl's mind, his heart, and his resolve truly begin to rupture here, as he is forced to harm a person for entertainment. Like they made it. There's no other way for him to do it. And he knows it. Gary knows it. Everybody else knows it. But what's being televised is him going on a rampage and just severing this poor guy's arms off over and over again.
Yeah.
Again, it's like, what are we seeing? What's the truth?
Yeah.
Gary, Growler Gary, Firebrandy, and Tizquick are all NPCs that realize their lives are a lie and that they're living in a game simulation, and worse, are not the main characters. It is a pivotal moment for Carl, and why I think the Iron Tangle is underrated. Like, again, it gets a lot of hate because there's a lot going on, but there's some really crucial, like, emotional moments.
Yeah, it has like a lot of major plot points and character growth. So
yeah, it has some epic stuff.
The twists are crazy.
Yeah,
like some wild stuff happens in that book. Yes. It's like really good. I mean, we're already fans, so it's like you don't have to convince us. It's just like, I don't know. I want to hear the critiques because I don't see it, and it's not like I'm the knower of everything. Right. I'm sure there's other opinions, and they probably have points. I haven't heard them yet, so I want to know why. Yeah. But I really like it.
During the crawl, Carl is surrounded by former crawlers like Mordecai, who survive by signing on as employees for future crawls. NPCs, which are created beings with fake memories and motivations like Signet and Growler Gary, and human crawlers twisted by the nightmare of the dungeon into something monstrous and sad like Lucia Marr, Eva, and Quanciate. They are all really sad to me because I don't think they're outwardly evil characters, especially Lucia Marr. She would break my heart. But you don't know that until later. While Dungeon Crawler Carl is a hilarious, fun, fantastical journey, it's also a heartbreaking and powerful story too. These characters and the world that Dinniman has built is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. As they venture deeper into the dungeon, their resolve is tested, and I am eager to see how Carl becomes more unhinged, but also how he continues to connect and thrive despite it all. With more and more crawlers added to the story, the power of humanity becomes all the more vibrant against the backdrop of this dystopian alien nightmare. Carl teaches us to not only survive, you will not break me, but to bring down the systems hurting us to begin with. I will break you.
Facts. And I consider that an affirmation. Like, honestly, to get through the day, sometimes you need to say, you will not break me, as I'm sitting like in the capitalism. Like, it's like literally, there's so much happening. And I'm just like, what would Carl do? I can't explode things. But I can at least say, you will not break me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I appreciate him. I agree that it took a minute to like fully be like, can I trust this man?
Mm-hmm.
Can I trust this man with the future of the story? What is happening? Like, this lens, is it a good lens? And then like it keeps going. You're like, no, he's growing. Like, there are rough moments, but he is learning through it, and there's like really power to that. But my section is Dungeon Crawler Carl, Affirmations, You Will Not Break Me, and other inspirations to get us through the horrors. And this is incorrect, obviously, because there are critics of the book. But everyone I know who has started reading Dungeon Crawler Carl, either based on a recommendation or through finding it themselves, seems to become hooked pretty quickly. And it was no CrawlerCon, but I did go to Philly Fan Expo, and there was one Princess Donut riding Mongo,
Mm-hmm.
and there was at least one merchandise of like, I got a little crawler card of Donut and Carl, and it's not like my favorite art style, but like I was like, oh my god, it's here. Yeah. And that was very exciting. So it's starting to make waves. It's also been helping me maintain my reading goals, where I'm out of 10 out of 15 of my book goals for the year. Which I know for Gabe, who has like 80 books on their
that's like
reading
42.
goal, that's like nothing.
Oh, my goal, yeah, is 80.
For me, who is bad at reading and has really been trying to pick it up, I added 3 books to my reading goal for this year, and it's been making it easy for me to get through. And it's also a fun fact, the first series I have read since Octavia Butler's Lilith's Brood that I started purely just like for fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we did not originally plan to cover these books. Gabe and I had just both been reading them this whole year. So we're like, that would actually really work as a series. Mm-hmm. But so much happens in this book series. And as Gabe and I are on book 6, hopefully you want to hear us say more about Dungeon Crawler Carl. And I really think it's like taken the internet and the world by storm. It's been such a safe room stop as I push myself through this year. As I was alluding to, this year has been a lot. There's still a lot of months left.
Yeah, we're halfway through.
It's like you're on like, when he gets to like a certain floor, he's like, how long has it been since this started?
Yeah.
And it's like been like 20 days plus like some change. Like, obviously there's some bright spots for sure, a lot of clarity, but a lot of what has also felt like concussive punches to my brain. Mm-hmm. And this book has helped cope with that and even feel vaguely hopeful. The characters, Carl, and especially everyone else, is as inspiring as they are tragic, and every You Will Not Break Me feels deeply personal and is what I've needed to hear. And I think the added, once you get to book 4, I will break you, is needed in this oppressive time. So I just wanted to say thanks to the books for that. Not that I think Matt Dinneman will listen to our episode, but if that does happen, thanks. You did a good book. Thank you for doing. The real enemy in Dungeon Crawler Carl and the exploitation spectacle surrounding it. So Gabe talked a bit about reality TV. I'm going to continue that lens, but also with the horrors we witness every day, mixed with the mind-numbing capitalism of it all, the world is hard to live in sometimes. Much like Carl is sitting in there in the dungeon being like, this sucks. Mm-hmm. We are in our own version of that, just sans aliens. Because despite so desperately wanting it to be a softer and kinder place, it unfortunately usually isn't. At least that's not what we generally get to see. And whether it's witnessing horrors through a phone screen, the rise of red pill men in reality TV, or just the news, instead of feeling entertained a lot of the times, I usually just feel horrified by what it means for our future, what it means for the very real humans being twisted and harmed by the propaganda, and for like what, mm-hmm. you know, the wealthy to get even wealthier, to entertain and distract us so we don't realize we're in a dungeon. Like, we went real fast from like pandemic time of like, there is no normal, like, mm-hmm. we can't, and like we're not getting back to that, and then to being back in it, and it's like, what the heck?
Yeah, we
had the out. What are we doing? So, or the spectacle of the tariffs being paid back to give them even more billions, you know, the mm-hmm. spectacle of the wealthy at the real cost of our lives, like being like Squid Games. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of why is this what we're doing?
Yeah.
when there are other options. And in the bid for eyes and attention via screens, it's hard to look away. In our own world, the news is pitched to us as one nightmare atrocity after the other. Our phones provide us a window to war, police violence, covered up deaths, injustices en masse, pleas to support someone as they raise money to pay for their dying pet, cancer treatments, or housing. such heavy things are thrown at us in rapid succession in like 30 to 60-second clips, all that feel urgent, and all we're expected to go to work and act like none of it's happening. This exists as its own exploitation spectacle, as you're saying. The viewers need to like you.
Mm-hmm.
You need to manipulate the viewer in order to get them to feel compelled to act. And that's like what we get in our phones. And it's also even more the case when we're looking at reality TV. So while TV shows, movies, games, and reality TV can offer a great escape or processing ground for the really heavy emotional load we carry in our pockets and interact with in the world, it also has a negative side. So don't get me wrong, reality TV is fun because it gives us something to talk about with our coworkers. It is an exploration of the many different ways a person can be a person, which from an anthropological point of view is really interesting. It's a connecting point in the midst of all the horrors. I watched all of Love Island for the first time this season, and I was entertained for sure. It was very fun, but also upsetting because it's obvious that the producers intentionally put these real humans in harm's way for the spectacle of it. Also last season, like they should not have been doing that. It also absolutely felt like this season specifically that the Dungeon AI was making some of these challenges with the amount of foot and toe sucking there was this season. What was that? I was like, it was really wild to read Dungeon Crawler Carl and then watch Love Island this season, because I'm like listening to the AI be like, toes, squish them with your feet,
right?
And then have like literally Bryce like his entire person's foot in his mouth, and I'm like, what are we doing? It's real. Also, special call out of The Ultimatum, Love is Blind, and Age of Attraction. I couldn't even get through the first episode of Age of Attraction for being especially gross in the platforming of unsafe men. A lot of reality TV does this, but those three shows, oh my God. And we can hold two things to be true at the same time. And I'm not saying don't watch reality TV. It can absolutely be a fun escape for us at home who are just trying to get through the day. But at the same time, we can call out that the rise in red pill men on these shows is intentional, problematic, and unsafe to the women they partner them with. Like, it is literally just for the views.
Yeah.
They're putting these people in harm's way just to be entertaining and also to normalize that behavior. Like, if we're talking about like The Crawl desensitizing violence, it is very much desensitizing the problems with those men. So
it's also like Love is Blind is also like trad wife and conservative propaganda. Like it tells people that their only worth is being married. And if they're not doing that, they're failing. So.
Yeah, no, literally. Like, honestly, it's like the Nick Lachey duo.
The Lachey
is like, ultimately, all of the shows have their own brand of like problematicness. They're clearly just exploiting people. Like, there's no, they think they're doing stuff for, it's not that. It's not, and it's gross. It is entertaining. I'll give them that, but it's not cool at the same time. Just like the dungeon is broadcast across the universe, the exploitation spectacle of a few 20-something adults demeaning themselves for $100,000 or less, it's not even like a lot of money,
right?
Is also a problem. Our audience is placated by the illusion of consent, by the fact that they chose to be there, so therefore deserve it, quote unquote. When all of our survival needs come at a cost, there is no enthusiastic consent to the fame and money prize for these shows. Reality TV offers these young people a path to fame and economic growth at the cost of themselves, their bodies, their
mental
sanity,
health,
their mental, often before they have fully formed brains. Like, the fact that they're pulling like 22-year-olds and putting them on the show is just like so unethical. Especially shows that are like geared towards getting married. There's no, they shouldn't be doing that. They're not ready to do that, actually, and it shouldn't be on TV. And at best, it promises pathways out of poverty for themselves and their families if they can just get to the end. And at worst, platforms harmful people or lands them in death threats and social ostracization category. And I'm not saying we shouldn't call out problematic people for doing problematic things on TV. I'm saying they shouldn't have been in the room in the first place. Like, they know, the people researching these contestants know that they said the N-word. You know what I mean? Like, how? That's crazy. They shouldn't be in this room, or they know that they're MAGA Republicans, or they know they shouldn't be here in the first place. And that's the issue, is that they're putting them in these rooms that are not safe. So Carl is given a similar illusion of consent when told he can stay on this decimated and barren earth with no resources, fighting for survival, just much like capitalism makes us do, or enter the dungeon.
And fight for survival there.
Yeah, why not? You can get money and people will watch you, and that's pretty cool. And sure, the terrible options presented, he chose to enter the dungeon. And just like Blink Twice, we don't need to victim blame here to justify harm. It's not really a choice.
No, it's not.
When there's only two crappy things.
Death this way or death that way?
Yeah, either way, death is at the end of the road. So if The Crawl is a horrifying reality TV show for the universe, and suffering is so widespread and largely inevitable and therefore desensitized, it makes the viewers of The Crawl make a lot more sense. We view reality TV on Earth very similarly, and it is why we have critiques like The Hunger Games and The Longest Walk. This makes the viewers of The Crawl feel less like necessarily like an enemy, but more a potential ally to join together with. And that's why Carl actively is like, hey, I'm talking to you. You have power here. What are we doing with it? And throughout each book, he realizes more and more that the issue he's fighting they're systemic issues, not an individual issue. And specifically in Doomsday Scenario, which I've seen like making the Instagram rounds too, because it's like a good quote. And it's like, if it used to be okay, but it's not okay anymore, then maybe you should do something about it. He's talking to the viewers at home who are actively under these oppressive governments. Don't compare your circumstances with how they were yesterday. Look at how they were years ago. We're supposed to be making the world, the universe, a better place for our children. If it's not better, if you're dealing with cruelty, with neglect, then you should do something about it. So yeah, fuck them. If you're unhappy with your government, then kick them out and set up your own, one that represents the people's best interests. You shouldn't have to put up with some loser who's going to take people's money and waste it on games, especially when those games entail killing people weaker than him with little or no danger to himself. That's my opinion. Thinking of what's happening in the world right now.
There we go. Gestures loudly at everything.
Yeah. Literally though. And he's talking to the audience at home and he's like, hey, you're seeing this, right? And even as you get further into the books, you see that like the viewers, the people who even go in, some of the hunters, like aren't evil by nature. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're also in the system. They're considered non-citizens. Like
they also have the illusion of choice.
Yeah, illusion of choice.
Here was not a choice.
Their families. Yeah, literally. So additionally, this book series continues to showcase, as it gets to the later books, that the narrative is being written by someone. The reins of the show are being manipulated by people in charge. If the producers, hunters, NPCs, and crawlers are pawns of the larger corporations and governments, these are systems of harm. If Born in the Crawl can trade hands, cut costs with unfair rules, or the wealthy can buy access to the Crawl to just be gods in there and like murder everyone, there is corruption in the room. And in real life, we see this as well, whether that's through the buying of entire networks and news outlets or replacements of executive leaderships of TV networks, or the literal overthrowing of governments. The rest of us are the cogs in the wheel of this fucked up game, and we need to work together to break the system before it breaks all of us. Because it assuredly will get worse. So every "you will not break me, I will break you" said by Carl is a nod to that reality. And Gabe and I end up talking about something pretty similar. It's just like the tragedy of the NPCs in Dungeon Crawler Carl. Like it is just like something I think is so unique to the series comparatively to other stories. And it is just like, it does a great job showing our capacity for empathy as humans. And like, I think like also like the Ring of Suffering and all that other stuff, like it gives Carl a lot of like, you're thinking of, he's not someone you would immediately assume has a deep emotional well of empathy within him. And where we start with the fears around player killers and the enemy within mentality, often showing like a us versus them kind of vibe that we see in a lot of apocalypse media. Like we can't work together. We're going to fight each other.
It's inevitable.
yeah, it's inevitable. We're like, and that's what the crawl like wants them to think.
Yeah.
And then we transition quickly to this hope core with Carl choosing mercy and compassion for his fellow crawlers and the NPCs, even in the face of like these impossible fights. Like thinking of Pluribus, like the enemy is so far out of their ability to logically win. But Carl and Donut consistently come out the other side and do so while protecting as many people as they can, despite the image that the crawl has tried to paint of them as being unwell. When he is with other people, usually the result is that they feel inspired by him. Like the hat scene in book 3 is a great example of that, where it's just like everyone laid down their hat. Like it was a big deal that people, despite what they saw, trusted him.
Yeah, they said, I see you.
Yeah. And that like, that's like very hope core in the fact that like we would expect people to fight against each other for resources, and in the disaster utopia that we see unfold, like they really look out for each other, and it really starts to become like, there's a few outliers for sure, but crawlers versus the corporation kind of vibe. And even when it comes to the loss of NPCs, the books goes out of its way to compel the reader to feel empathy towards these quote unquote biological constructs and their lack of freedom. Mordecai describes them as they are living biological creatures similar to some of the mobs. Most have been engineered by the Borat Corporation and therefore are owned by the Borat Corporation. This is the only world they have ever known. And the NPCs in Dungeon Crawler Carl are an extremely compelling plot point for the overarching story, because they are more powerless in this incomplete world, and where they are forced to live over and over again. Their bodies are pulled from the decimated planet after decimated planet. Like they are the remnants of all these societies, and their minds are filled with incomplete histories of families, trauma, and plot devices, and their purpose is fodder. And the series does an amazing job building empathy for the NPCs throughout each floor they interact with. And while as a reader, we are in the same boat as the crawlers who know they are not quote unquote real, there is a tragedy to their existence because they are the remnants of real living things that were forced to be tortured in this way, robbed of their truth over and over again. So essentially it's like when he's on The Beautiful show, that's happened to so many creatures, and their bodies are morphed into these NPCs. And similar things are done to former crawlers who died in the dungeon. Not even just like thinking of like Mordecai, who like had to sign a contract in order to get out of the dungeon. But like Remix, he's a former crawler who died in the dungeon and like has been manipulated in this way. And like, he's like, dying is better. Let's all die together, because the further down you go, the worse it gets. Like, this is a kindness. Stay here with me. And dying in the crawl means that their bodies will be used to torture future crawlers against their will forever. He just ends up being like a plot device. And all of the viewers tune into Carl and Donut's feed because they recognize Remix. They watched his crawl. They want to see him again in his tragic end. So it's just extra effed. It goes a level above the question of if AI is sentient enough to believe it's alive, does it deserve freedom, to actual living creatures who believe they are what the world has told them that they are. And the book references organizations that like protest the crawl and the ethics of the biological constructs being used in this way, and presents us with like the very sad reality that despite the obvious horrors of their existence, they're not able to be saved. Their lives have been ruled unworthy of such things. Like they have like regulations, just like AI in certain countries has regulations, but not here. And it's just like, yeah, it's just really sad what ends up getting done to this history of people. And in the first book, we get a bit of that as Gabe said with the goblins. We were like, oh my God, he just murdered babies. And you see their manipulation, and it's like, you feel kind of bad, even though they're goblins. Like you're used to kind of not caring about goblins in other American like media. They're usually like throwaway characters. And then like the dungeon plays on that, but you do empathize with them, even though they're like really weird, because even after you see that scene, you're like, wow, should I continue following Carl? He just murdered a room full of babies. I remember being like, I feel weird about that.
Yeah.
I don't like that. Why'd we do that? And then you start to like see Carl's own grappling with it and like what the dungeon is forcing them to do. And then it just escalates every single floor. I think Signet was really powerful. Remix really messed me up. I just thought that was so sad. You have all the women that were promised freedom and access to later floors that were manipulated in the culminating plot. That was really sad. There were so many children in the dungeon. And you're like, why children in here? Get the children out of here. They shouldn't be in here.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, yeah, the Tangle floor. Like that was just so devastating with the NPCs. Like they didn't even take the time to give them real homes.
Yeah.
They didn't even give them take the time to give them actual kids. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was just like, you don't matter so much that we're not even going to build an infrastructure for your fake existence.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing we're going to be like, pretend that you're real. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, yeah, they just really hate on the NPCs, the creators. And it just feels extra unethical. And this isn't even touching on the impact that this has on the crawlers and the way they're forced to rationalize the harm to NPCs for survival, or the indentured former crawlers that are forced to serve as game guides, or even the other dungeon features throughout the crawl, like the way that they manipulate Mordecai. And like, you're never free is the moral of the story. There's no peace for anyone in the dungeon, even in death. And it's just like they really go out of their way to like make you empathize with every single character, even like the evil ones. And I just think that's really powerful to the story. And there's so much tragedy balanced in between the comedy and action, so much like Pluribus, even though the odds are so incredibly stacked against Carl and Donut and everyone impacted by the dungeon. They fight anyway, and there is hope in that can hopefully bleed into reality.
Like what you're talking about with like the goblin babies and that stuff, like that's part of, I think, why people reading the first book, seeing the hoarder, seeing the goblin baby deaths, it's like that to them is like, okay, no, you know, it's
like,
hard
I don't
to
trust this to get better.
It's hard to believe Carl's a hero in any way when he's like, oh, whatever, you know, like he brushes it off. And especially in the beginning, because you don't know the reality is like that he's haunted by those things, because he doesn't get a chance to actually be haunted yet. And so I think like that's super important. But some people, it's just like, and I get it, because he is a very complicated hero. Like he is out here killing people. And just because he's like, it's, you know, he's kind of forced into these things, he's still doing it, you know?
No, absolutely. And it's like, there's like characters that he interacts with and you're like, you get to see the good in him, but it takes a pretty decent chunk into the first book to start to get to that. Like you don't really get to interact with the Meadowlark crew until like pretty decently into the first book. So I could definitely see how like they'd be like, I don't think he's gonna get there. And I don't need to know.
It's like fair. If you haven't really gotten like Imani being like essentially a healer, you know, like she's a cleric for the most part, and she's existing all the way through to this, you know, or if you don't see all of these strong femme characters and all of these like really heartfelt characters, like at the beginning, because you just start to get them in the Tangle. It's very easy. Like that's why I think like the fourth one is really my favorite, because it's the one that departs from Carl. Like,
you get so much less Carl, you get so much more of everybody else, and that's really cool.
Like he's removed from the game for a minute, and everyone has to fend for themselves. And I think it was so perfect that happened. I think it was very important that they knew they could do it without him, and that like I think, because I always have a hard time as a reader getting behind like the chosen one when it's
absolutely
you know, like I'm always just like, who says, you know, still like feeling, and it's
also I think the revolutionary ideal is also very usually backed behind one person, and it's not one person. Like there's the idea of a hero, and it's like everyone can be a hero once they're given the chance to rise to the occasion, and it takes up a bunch of people working together. So you really get to finally see that in the fourth book. That's not just him.
Like he can't do this by himself, and he realizes that too. Like as time goes on, he's like, oh, this is actually not about me. and everyone else is really strong and they're really important and they look to me for help and support and they trust me, which is very important. But I think it's important to see Carl get humbled, and that really doesn't happen until the fourth book. Like a true humbling until he's removed.
Yeah, you get lightly humbled in the third, and then real humbled. He's like,
he feels of humbling for sure.
Yeah.
He definitely is just like, he doesn't even know that he's like got that mindset because he's just surviving. And so I think that realization is really important. So yeah, I think like, do not hate on anyone who's like, this isn't for me. It isn't, and that's okay. Like, totally. I think the people who it is for, they love it because it's fun. It is really fun. It's crazy. Like, if you're already into that kind of stuff, I love like a lot of the D&D or just like adventuring like parts of it, and the characters and the class. But I also like the history and the other lives that have been affected, and then the overarching themes of like resilience and fighting against the systems of oppression and those kinds of things. And I appreciate that it is a collective goal and not a singular, this one guy hero. I also like that there isn't really romance so far, you know? I think it's really important that in the midst of this violence and this trauma that that's not the answer, you know? It's like, like when do you have the time?
Yeah, no, literally. And it's like that Carl specifically doesn't get with any of the first characters he interacts with. Like, it's important that he's not like, oh, let's revolution at the end of the world. Might as well get it in. No, he doesn't do that. He's like actively like, don't touch me.
Right. I like that he's getting like horror movie final world, you know, where it's just like sex kills, and so he's like, okay, like they make jokes about it all the time. Like, Donut's like, if you have sex with Signet, you will die. Like, not from like her or anything she does. It's like the plot will require you to die, so you cannot fuck Signet. And he's like, I genuinely wasn't even
thinking of that, actually. I know she's naked, but that wasn't because of anything.
She scares me. Like, I don't want to touch that. That's terrifying. Like, I just think that's like really fun.
It was a charm spell. I had to break my finger. You know what I mean?
Carl was appalled. Yeah, so funny. Yeah, I think it has some really genuine moments of just laugh out loud funniness, and then it also has moments where I've cried, you know, and I've just my heart has been broken, and I feel for these characters, even though they're peripheral, right? Because we are in Carl's head, but I also feel for Carl too. I like that he is broken. Like, I like that he's complicated and that he's knows that something's wrong, you know, and then he's trying to fight it as much as he can, but he's also like becoming a lot more self-aware. And Donut too,
and the empathy of that,
Donut's so funny, but her moments, you know, like after the dancing,
Donut's made me cry a few times.
Oh yeah, I sobbed when she was on the show. I highly recommend. Give it a shot. You do not have to read all of them. You do not have to read till the third one to feel something. If you don't, give it up. It's fine. But if you liked what we had to say. One, let us know what you think. Leave a comment, subscribe, like, all that stuff. But also let us know if you want us to do more. And we will. Because we're hooked. They're going to have to do something really bad for me to... I'm gonna be
I already feel very strongly. I'm like, ugh, can we trust
a white man to be unproblematic
in 2026?
Don't do it.
So I'm hoping... We'll see.
Yeah. But thank you so much for listening. And stay tuned for the next one. We're still doing alien invasions. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.